Hey, it's a Wolf, and today we're building this bonemeal-efficient moss farm that has a bonus stone generator. You'll get around a shulker of moss for every stack of bone meal you feed this. Per hour you get around 12,500 moss, which is 200 stacks, and 700 azalea bushes, which is 11 stacks, using less than a stack of bone meal blocks per hour. If you need seeds, flowering azalea, or mossy carpet, you can configure the filters to collect them too at the cost of a bit of bone meal. And if you need stone or cobblestone, we have a stone generator built into this, which you can turn off the moss part and just use it for stone. How this works, you put your bone meal into the dispenser or the chest, and then you come down here, flick this lever, and it bone meals, and the water goes through, and it continues to bone meal, and waters, and all that, and all the drops will flow down through here, through the filters, and anything that is left over will come down into the composter, be turned into bone meal, and fed back into the system. And if you just want the stone generator part, flick this lever, which will turn off all the rest of the contraption. And then you stand down here and just hold this down and it will generate all the stone and cobblestone you could possibly need and feed it into this chest here. Here's everything you need to get started. The smooth stone, most of that can be pretty much anything, but for the parts underneath you want it to be something that moss can't spread to, so like stone bricks for example would be a good one. You could use iron trapdoors instead of the wax copper. This is just so that it doesn't burn in lava, and if glass is really tight you can probably get away with other stuff instead of some of the glass, but you will need some glass. The leaves can be any leaves, and the spruce trapdoors can be any trapdoors. In fact, all but one of these can be buttons. Speaking of buttons, these oak buttons can be any buttons. Stone, wood, doesn't matter, they're just to block water. So let's go build it. You'll need an area that is 18 wide, 22 deep, and 11 tall, though I'll often bury it 2 blocks into the ground so that this is ground level. That way I can hide a lot of the redstone. As for chunker lining, you don't want a line to be between the lava and the pistons on either side, and you most definitely don't want a chunk border running through here or the items won't be picked up. You'll also want about half a stack of filter items and a bunch of bone meal. I chunk aligned mine to the back corner, and this is where the chunk lines fall, and the other corner of the chunk border is here where the torch is, and that's where I'm going to start building from. So if we start over here, this is where I had the torch. So from this torch in the chunk corner, we leave a 1 block gap, and then here we do a 6, and then another 6, 1 there, and 2 there. And fill all this in. I like to do it this way, just so that we know exactly if we come from underneath, we don't break any redstone. So we have 2 dust, comparator on subtract mode, repeater on the second one, another repeater on 1, and on 1, and on 1, dust here, and here. And then this goes into a pulse limiter. Comparator goes in there with a repeater there. Solid block with a redstone torch. Solid block on top, redstone torch on top of that. Then we have to this side, to this side, with dust on all these. These all point into target blocks. Temporary block, and then let's put some smooth stone along here. Temporary blocks on top, and then your wooden trapdoors across the top, or wherever really, but for consistency we're going to do it there. And you want to put a copper trapdoor here, copper trapdoor here, and then to save running backwards and forwards with water, we're going to put some temporary blocks here, and then you'll only need 2 buckets of water because you put 1 there, and then you can, that makes an infinite water source, so you can go back and grab that, yeah. And so we have this. We put a temporary block there so that we can put some more stone here, and a temporary block there. Put your trapdoors on these. And then we come up here and looking at the trapdoors, we crouch and place the pistons so they're like this. So now you want to open that trapdoor and break that temporary block. And do the same at the far side. Otherwise, when you break these temporary blocks, the whole thing it won't be good. So now we crouch and place a glass block on the end of both of these, and we can break out these temporary blocks. And looking at this smooth stone, we put our lava bucket. Now that is going to create stone on each of these. And now we do temporary block, and then glass over the top so we don't fall in. And get rid of that. So now if you want to test it out, make sure it works, just put that there. And you'll see it starts working. Can turn that off. Let's clear this for now. Now let's do some storage for the stone generator. Put a temporary block there. Double chest here. Gonna have a hopper come into there and then 2 hoppers behind. And then we're going to put these hoppers like so. Just so that we've got an alternate one, because at full speed these hoppers will back up if you've got too many of them. So now we can break that, have the stairs, so you're going to be standing here and doing your stone generating. Then on top of this redstone dust, put our lamp, and then we're going to put that there. So now you have a working stone generator. So now we want to run this until it finishes. Well, until it can't push any further. And now it's stopped, so we can turn that off. And this is where the other one's going to be. The reason why we do that, if we have a look over here, by doing this, it means that we don't have to put obsidian behind it, so that the pistons never push each other out of position. So now let's go and build it on the other side. So we're going to come underneath of this, and then we put our 5 target blocks. Temporary on top of here, and then we're going to put our spruce trapdoors on top like this. These can be any trapdoors, and we're going to put our copper trapdoors here, temporary block there, with another copper trapdoor there, and break that one. Same thing over here, temporary block, copper trapdoors in these positions, and then since we're here, let's do this and this. That'll contain the water. So we break out these temporary blocks. Then we put a water bucket here and here, which then allows you to pick it up from here and put it over there. So then crouch, and looking at these trapdoors, we want to put our pistons in here. These pistons are all going to be waterlogged. Double check that everything's right over here. Flip that one up and break it. And now you'll see that the water is flowing. So now we put the solid blocks on top here, and I've got glass there. You can do solid blocks there as well. Up to you. And we want to put a solid block on either of these. Grab your lava bucket and put it right in the center there. There we go, temporary block. And I like having glass over the top of lava just like that, so that you can see it, so you don't accidentally go break and fall into it. So now you're going to end up something like this. We're going to take a block here, temporary or solid, whatever, but you don't need that one. Then we're going to run this along here until we get one past these blocks. We're going to put dust all through here, all the way back to there. This one's going to be a repeater, and then we need to make sure that the signal gets all the way around here. So one of these through here, just want to replace that with a repeater, because you can't have more than 15 of these redstone dust in a row without it breaking. So now if we test this, these should all be firing. Everything's looking good. That's all good. So your stone generator is fully active. And if you're breaking it from here, I'm just doing it this way so that you can see the stone generator. It's essentially a double stone generator firing from both sides. So that the moss doesn't spread, we want to put all this underneath here. We're just going to do these solid blocks. That will also help all the items to flow out. So now we need to make sure that when we generate the moss that nothing's going to fall out. So we do this. Actually, in my materials list, I have this listed as glass. So for this build, I'm going to do it like this, but you can do it with solid blocks. It just helps to see how things are flowing. Or you can put obsidian there, whichever. We're also going to put solid blocks through there and put a temporary block there. We can put our dispenser there, crouch and place dispensers facing this way. So you've got all your dispensers like that. And then in front of the dispensers, we're going to put leaves. This just stops it generating water source blocks. Into each of these dispensers, we want to put a water bucket, and then we're going to surround these leaves with solid blocks, just so that the water doesn't go where we don't want it to go. You can get rid of that. Behind this middle dispenser, you crouch and place a block like this. And then we grab our redstone dust and crouch and put redstone dust over all of the dispensers. Over on this far side, we want to put a torch like this with a solid block with another torch with another solid block. And then behind that, we want to have a torch like so. And then on top of that, we put a copper bulb. If you want to keep it like that, wax it. Coming off this torch, we want a solid block, the comparator facing out, a bulb here, temporary block, a bulb, and then we're going to have dust like this. Now break this dust and replace it so that you have a configuration like this. These two are on and this one's off. This is how we do the counting so that the moss fires at a different time to the water. On a temporary block there so that we can put our solid block here, then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that it ends up over top of this, and then we have solid blocks like this. Put a comparator there, and then a repeater on 3 ticks, and then another repeater on 3 ticks. We're going to have a repeater there on normal with a comparator on subtract mode, and then dust like this. This delays the signal, and then this makes sure that when it's fired, it's just a 1 tick pulse. So as soon as it comes in, this immediately cancels at 1 tick later. This comparator pushes into a target block, and we're going to have a redstone torch on top of like this. We're going to have, if you come down here, we're going to have our dispenser coming out like this into the moss block. This is what's going to bone meal it. And then looking at the torch, we're going to have the piston. The reason why we have to have a piston on here is because when it grows, you're going to get carpet or azalea bushes or whatever on top of that, and it's not going to allow you to bone meal again until that's broken. So piston. Come to the far side, and then we're going to go like this, and this is where you're going to put your bone meal. Now we do the lower clock to fire the dispensers. So underneath this, we put a temporary block, solid block. Comparator comes out here. Put a temporary block there with a solid block above and below. Break that one out there. So because this is firing a signal into here, we can actually take advantage of that so that it goes into here. Follow this till you get to this line here, and then 1 block less on each of the sides. We have this pattern. We have dust here. This is going to be another signal limiter. So the dust is going to travel all the way there, and then we use these repeaters to govern how long the dispenser, how long the water is going to be out for. So have this on full, and then that on 3, and then like that. If you're finding that the water is regularly not pushing the moss all the way off there, just extend these repeaters a little bit longer. And if you need even further, you could do another repeater in there. But I've found that this configuration is the fastest that gets it most of the time. So you're not going to get every time the water, it's not going to push it all the way every time, just as long as it pushes it, you know, realistically within 5 minutes so it doesn't despawn. Now to actually fire the thing, we come over here because we want this observer looking at this pulse and firing into there. And the reason why we're doing an observer and not just a single one in there is because this is actually going to double pulse. So if we turn that off, we'll see. So it fires once, which fires the water out, and then it fires again. That was probably a bit too quick. Turn that off. So this immediately fires it, and then it fires it again, and so yeah, that's how that works. But probably don't do that if you don't want all this to fall apart. So now that we've got all that in place, let's set up the collection. To set up our collection, let's put a temporary block here, and we're going to run ice along here, and then out there for now. Temporary block so that we can run that to, and then we're going to put our last trapdoor in here. So that our items line up properly, we're going to put a double chest in here. Then if you put water here, it's going to go like this, and it's going to end right there. So we put a button there. It can be any button. Now we're going to contain all of this like so. You're never going to need to open this chest, so we can just block that off. However, take your buttons and we put this through there so that when this all fires, so when that fires, it just ends up there and it doesn't push too far and cause issues. Now technically this should be fully functioning, so we put these in here, make sure everything is all connected, and if we turn this lever on, there we go. Yeah, it's all working. So you want to collect up all this stuff just so that you have the stuff for filters and all that kind of stuff. So the way that I've built it, I've done 5 here just so that it's kind of future-proofed if I want to do other items or whatever. If you want to do it shorter, feel free to do shorter. You want to make sure that you have at least 2 filters for the moss because it can come fairly quickly and overload if you've only got 1. But I like to have at least azalea bushes just so that you can use it for tree farms. So from here we have 3, 4 and 5. Underneath we can place our barrels and come to the back, and we want to put hoppers so that they go into the ice and into the barrels. Barrels are just for overflow. Then in front of the barrels, we're going to put our double chests, or however you want to do your storage, come underneath so that the hoppers are pulling out of the barrels and pushing into there. Behind this middle row of hoppers, we're going to put solid blocks, and then one back we're going to put like this. Now, this is a filter that I designed myself. However, I've seen other people have done the same thing. There's only so many ways you can do something in redstone for it to be efficient. So we have this, and then the comparators are all going to go into solid blocks with glass on top like this. Go temporary block, so that we can put solid blocks like this, with redstone torches on each of these, and then dust on the top of all of these. And those are your filters done. You can see they're locking these middle ones. Now to fill these, you want to have at least 1 of your moss block, and then we're going to have 4 item filters there. I recommend renaming your item filters just so that nothing comes through and it breaks anything. And we can put these here, item filters, and then if you don't want to have anything in these ones, if you want to leave them for another day, you would just fill them with all 5 just so that nothing can go in. Now we take our solid blocks and we push it through there, grab your glass panes, and then coming off this chest we're going to put this through there like so. And then right at the end here, we're going to have our composter. Now, some of the items might flow through to here. Most of them are going to flow through to there. So we capture it both like this, put our glass pane there, and then we're just going to surround this like this just to contain everything. Finally, you're going to put a water bucket there so that everything flows through. And now when these items go through, some of them are going to be picked up in these individual hoppers and they're going to come down here, and everything else is going to be composted. One way of doing that, let's put a dropper here, not a dispenser, a dropper. And then we want to have our hopper feeding into the dropper. That way any bone meal is going to go into here. Now, dig these 2 blocks out. We put packed ice there and soul sand there. Put a button on top of that. So when this fires anything, it's going to slide across there into the soul sand, and then we're going to use the soul sand to do a bubble column up over. Material wise, I've got glass there. However, part of that is just because I like to see it. If you don't really care or you don't want to see it, then that's fine too. So we're going to have glass on there and solid blocks like this. So you can do this with a water bucket, but I prefer to do it with ice, not packed ice, just regular ice. However you're going to do it, let's just fill this. So when you place it down there, this is going to create a bubble column, and everything that's placed in there is going to float. Let's build this up by 7, and I just realized that we're going to have that in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're basically building this in line. So the top of this is in line with the bottom of that chest. Now my normal way of building this is 1, 2, and then 1 in there. But just make sure that you've got bubbles all the way through there. Now we're going to have packed ice on there, and we'll bring that over past the edge of this. And then we're going to finish with a hopper on top of there. Put glass on there, a temporary block, and we're going to put glass on the inside track. Just so that when we're sitting here or whatever, we can see that it is in fact passing the bone meal. Actually, I should have left that temporary block there. Now we're just going to do solid blocks all the way around the outside. Then bring that up to there. Water bucket there, and then this is going to go along here. We want this to go 1, 2, actually easiest way would be to place that there, see where that finishes, put a button there, pick up this water and put it there. So now everything will flow nicely. And so then just somewhere along here, we want to put a button and a water bucket, just so that anything that flies up here goes right the way around and is picked up into that chest, into that hopper, into that chest. And then let's just go 1 higher so that anything hits there and doesn't like fly way up into the sky. Now the final thing is to build the detector firer thingy for this. So we have a comparator coming out, solid block in these 2 places, target block there, dust and dust, and a comparator. Now if we have bone meal go in there, it's going to fire off, and you'll see that it goes up, travels along, and goes into this chest, which, because we've got glass above it, we can open, and so it's just going to push all the bone meal that it creates into there. So we've got some bone meal in here. One thing before we go, we need to put a lever on here. The reason for that is if we turn that, then it's not going to activate. So when we turn this on, it's not going to pass the signal through there and start firing there. This is the way that we get our stone generator. So your stone generator, you would stand here and you would just break the stone and it would be collected in these hoppers and go into that chest. We turn that off. Now we turn this one on and that will allow the signal through. Now if we turn this on, fires the water, bone meals, the moss, which spreads the moss underneath. See, by putting it here, we're losing this section here, but we're gaining extra on either side. So that's the trade-off. And the reason why we're losing it, you can see we're losing exactly under these 3 blocks here. Glass doesn't matter, but it's the hopper and the dispenser and the moss block. So it's bone mealing, everything's moving through. The items are being picked up in the chests. This is still filling up. And anything else is getting passed over. Let's see, it comes into this last one, gets picked up in here and raises the level. It's turned into bone meal, which then gets shot up. So then we're reusing some of the items to create bone meal that goes in here, and that's how we're able to get a shulker of moss from 1 stack of bone meal. If you're finding that this is creating cobblestone, for starters, make sure that you've got this piece of redstone here so that it is producing a pulse rather than an extension. But otherwise, you can slow down these repeaters here. So if it's creating cobblestone, that's simply because these pistons are firing too quickly. Shouldn't be an issue. I've run this on realms and servers without any issue, but in your case, you may need to make changes there. Everything else, I think that is basically it, and we're done. I hope you found this useful. Let me know how you go. If you build it in your world, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.